Members are present. Commissioners meeting Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. All commissioners are present. Public comments, as I always know. Okay, just making sure. Elected officials and department heads. Doug, do you have anything to bring to the group this morning?
A couple things briefly. I see Davis is circulating the officer certification packets for signatures. Next week is officer graduation. We will have 9 officers being recognized. Do you have an idea how much you have on the agenda and what the target start time would be? Because we do have families and friends of officers. We want to try to give them a target. Is 10.
Yeah, oh, sorry, my apologies. Go ahead.
Is 10:30 about right? Too early? Too late? What are your thoughts?
Whatever time you tell us, we will, if we're not done, we will break and then reconvene afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, that works. That makes sense. I'm gonna say 10:30 then.
Yeah, we don't have much on the agenda that day, just 1 or 2 semi-annual reports. I mean, that could change, of course, but for now, there's not much. I think 10:30 should be fine.
But you'll have at least 2 hours of business, or would you rather I move it to 10 a.m. a little sooner?
I have Kim and Patrick, but they will not do more than an hour and a half together, so 10.
I think 10 would be fine.
Yeah, the ceremony is only.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, if something comes up that makes it longer, we'll just figure that out and adjourn and then come back together, or recess and then come back together.
Yeah, the ceremony is just about 30 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
So did you say 10?
Yeah. Is there gonna be cake?
There will be cake, yeah. I heard, Jack, you're not available in person. I wondered if maybe Terry, you might say a few words in his stead and you could practice for your new role as chair.
Well, Dr. England probably could do that.
Either of you.
Yeah.
The normal format is I'll do some introductory remarks. I have a little bit I like to say. I think Chris has briefly said some words, and normally Jack has had his words of inspiration, but yeah, if one of the 2 of you would be willing to say a little bit, that would be nice.
It would be great if you could do it in like some like Broadway tune.
In Allegra.
Maybe together, a duet.
Okay, I'll bring the vest, you bring the hats.
The more we
Alright.
get together, the happier we'll be.
They've got it covered.
Yes.
Yeah, looking forward to this.
For the record, I just did my signatures and I'm now passing them on to Terry for his signatures.
Okay, it sounds like Jack's swinging by on Friday to get your signatures on there. Is that what you and Davis worked out?
Well,
Yeah,
Talk after. I realize I might be in Concord on Friday, but
I'll be here.
we'll get it done.
I'll be here.
Okay, great.
That means what exactly?
he can sign them electronically.
After I win.
On another note, we are fully staffed,
Wow.
dare I say, and had an experience that hasn't happened here since I've been superintendent. It used to happen when we hired officers. We had what I'll call competitive oral boards, meaning we had more applicants than positions. That had never happened in the last 4.5 years. But we had 16 applications come in the beginning of October, late September, screened them down to 5 in-person interviews and boards, and filled 3 positions out of that. So again, it's clear to me that the pay increase has made a difference in both retention and recruitment, and I just want to acknowledge that.
All right,
It's great
that's
news.
great news, actually.
Good to hear.
I knocked on wood just when you said that, just so you know.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then I had something in lieu of Miss May, but if you want me to do that after other department updates, it's,
Actually, you actually can bring it forward now. Kim told me that you're gonna bring it forward. She also said that she approves what you're bringing forward.
okay. So it is for an officer who's been with us 10 months. He's been very solid, but he's not yet at a year. So this would be your request for commissioner's approval of an unpaid leave. He is experiencing some mental health issues and getting some treatment. I'll leave it at that in terms of his privacy.
Yeah.
We anticipate probably within a couple weeks, but he did use his available time up as of this week, so
I
requesting.
so move.
Second.
Second, any questions? Seeing none? Commissioner Wozniak,
Aye.
Commissioner England,
Aye.
and Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. That's
All right.
all I had.
Cheryl, you have anything today?
No, just here to listen to what's going on. We're getting the budgets finalized, so our goal is that by Friday, we'll be letting you know that they're ready to pick up.
Okay, thank you. Anything aside from presentation?
No.
Okay, then we're gonna keep on moving on. Scheduled item, master agenda item number 1217, treatment court semi-in report. Allison is here, Seamus is here. Action expected to receive information report on treatment court's activities for the preceding 6 months. Allison.
So thank you for having us. I brought Seamus here because he's been with us for more than a couple of years now, and I feel like his role is instrumental to the program, and I wanted the commissioners to hear about it. He is still funded by a federal BJA grant through October of 25. And I just want you to be aware of how important his role is and how he's, and I hate saying this because it just can make his head swell, the most liked member of the team, and also statewide, one of the most respected peer support on any team. So
Great.
without further
Great to
ado.
hear.
So Seamus is just gonna talk briefly about his role and what's been happening since he started.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is James Backdoor Dwyer. I'm the certified recovery support worker with Cheshire County Treatment Court. I believe last time I presented one of these, I was not yet certified. Now I am through a lot of pain and heartache. Yeah, so I'm now certified with the New Hampshire Drug and Alcohol Board. And the four main domains of peer support or recovery coach: advocacy, ethical responsibility, mentoring, education, recovery, wellness support. And switch up the verbiage as opposed to what's on the slide. Advocacy is, I think, the biggest aspect of advocacy is me helping the participants feel comfortable speaking with the team in a court setting in a way that is respectful, and they think that they'll feel heard, which a lot of them don't believe that they will be, in a capacity that the team is actually listening. Anytime I can bridge that gap and make them feel confident bringing up things they need to discuss is good. Then rolls into the ethics, doing it in a way that's not gonna be detrimental to them trying to speak up for themselves, because they get tense and anxious in the court system and don't really have a lot of trust. Yeah, we're also advocating for their work or their relationships, anything in their lives that they historically not had good communication skills. Also, all of those in an ethical way. So those will both kind of fall under mentoring and education. Education can go a little deeper depending on. I meet participants where they're at. If there's someone who's really rocky in their recovery, we really don't talk about substantial growth because they're not in that space. sometimes people have something click and they'll wanna do something like work towards their own CRSW, they'll work in local recovery communities or get a new job, and then that's where the mentoring and education, it's probably my favorite part of the job. When they really, the light comes back on in their eyes and they feel like getting something done in their day-to-day life, and then they come to me and we brainstorm about it. And yeah, the recovery, multiple pathways, whether they are religious, they wanna do AA, they, participant who just works out constantly, it's kind of his thing. Yeah, just support them in any of those things, talking about sleep patterns, what their diet looks like. A lot of people in active use don't eat that well. So yeah, things of that nature fall under those 4 categories.
Need to turn.
Yes.
Do you want to cue every time you turn a page?
I just saw him turn the page, I'm like, turn the page.
I was on top.
He had it, sorry.
Some basic qualifications, suffered from substance use for a long time. I mean, my pathway of recovery is abstinence based. But along the way to get there, I went through all the multiple pathways, including harm reduction. It's MOUD now, I think is the term for it, taking Suboxone, been to treatment facilities. Yeah, now I've been sustained several years of abstinence. I've been to all of the state, regional and national conferences. I had all my trainings initially that I needed to get certified, and I continue to go to a conference. I think we have another one coming up in mid-November. And continued supervision with someone who's certified to supervise CRSWs. And occasionally we'll have some trainings trickle down that seem interesting or beneficial that we'll take on the side too, or I will too sometimes. Can't speak. Kind of getting into the meat and potatoes, a little bit of the data. Had 4,600 hours on the job in total since I've started, over 500 of which was direct contact. Which was very fulfilling for me to write that down, because the first, I'd say 6 months, there was very little. Participants looked at me like I was an extension of a probation officer, and it took a long time to build rapport with them where they felt comfortable talking to me about things. And since then, it's just got, much more contact very consistently. I go to self-help meetings. AA reigns supreme in Cheshire County for what there is. I know in bigger areas, Nashua and Dover, there'll be all different types of self-help meetings, but AA is the one that's stuck and is held. I attend those with participants. There's been a few other meetings or self-help things, but they're very rare.
How many AAs are there?
I know that there's right now probably 4 in Keene that are consistent meetings that have been around for years. Like every now and then they'll post a new schedule, or Serenity Center or Yana Center will try and make another one catch, and it's really hard for it to happen. The Toad group is the nooner, there's a morning meeting too. Probably the newest one that I'm aware of, the MPS posts young people's Wednesday night meeting. It's gone on the past 5 years or so. There's not many, but the ones that there are consistent. Yeah, and I can't really speak to it outside of Keene, although I know we are Cheshire County. A lot of participants don't have reliable transportation, so we're not really outside of Keene.
Does that isolation put them at higher risk?
I would think so. I know with under the multiple pathways of recovery that a lot of participants are opposed to AA. And one of the reasons why drug court and treatment court can't mandate them to go to it is because there's so much God rhetoric in it, which a lot of them are not a fan of when they have the trauma that they have had, or they just feel like life is unfair and it's beating them down, and then yeah, they go in somewhere and a bunch of people are hey, God will help you through this. And a lot of them are not a fan. I have participants that I speak with very consistently, and I'll be like, hey, me and these other two individuals are going to meetings in a little bit. I'll see you later. And so, yes, I think that isolation does affect them, because I got sober in Dover. There was NA, there was HA, there was smart recovery, there was all these multiple pathways that were very prevalent in the community, and individuals who had a hard time with the God aspect of AA went to those and made a big difference.
Well, there is one in the town of or in the village district of Munsonville. And it's been going every Monday evening, and I understand it's good and effective, and often driving by, I see 6 or 7 cars there.
Yeah,
Good to know.
it was, I was at, Yana, You're Not Alone. You Are Not Alone. On Monday night, and they had a decent crowd there, actually, probably 25 people.
Yeah, I would say Yana Center is probably it's the staple spot for recovery meetings in the community.
So there are several types of, well, that fit into different groups of people so that they, you know, some people don't affiliate themselves with others, you know. And you have different, you know, it's just like school cliques, you know.
Yes. That's why I think the Wednesday night young people meeting has caught on so well, because the verbiage for the clique that is usually the most is old timer AA. It's a lot of old timers who have long-term recovery, and they have a very dogmatic way of thinking about how you obtain sobriety and what that looks like. So I think that the young people's meeting is needed because of that. The community's kind of facilitated it and the younger people, the different cliques, and that one seems to be more all-inclusive, because there should be some old timers there, but it's a diverse enough group that everyone feels comfortable there. The nooners have gotten better too. I was 16 years ago, I was court ordered to AA meetings, and I was going to the nooner, the AA group, and the old timers, and I remember speaking about substances, and a gentleman there scoffed, and I was 16 years old. I didn't know that I shouldn't be. And that same individual is there now, and I speak to him all the time. It's much more relaxed. So the whole energy and ideals behind the community of AA is growing, which is good as well.
I don't know if you remember the history of the Serenity Center. The History Center was originally on Carpenter Street. And then and I was on the board then, there ended up being a big rift philosophically between the old time AA people and the Serenity Center. And so that's when Yana was created. And as a treatment court, we can never, even though the most success I've seen from people so far has been those who build a community with AA. We just require self-help meetings, and that can be anything from going to church, going to yoga, going to the Y. So we've really expanded that just so people expand their network and build a sober social pro network in the community versus relying on the team so heavily. That being said, AA has been super successful with a lot of our people. We just can't federally mandate it. There was a lawsuit years ago, and no one can mandate AA or NA or HA, unfortunately. But everyone has their own pathway, which was philosophical split between the Serenity Center and Yana. But they're both serving populations.
I'm just curious, Unitarian Church, what do they do? Because there's a group that meets there.
They're great. No, we've spoken to them. Lisa and I spoke. They do
They're
AA,
Okay,
but they also do other meetings too, and they're very welcoming community.
yeah.
I really like the church. Sorry.
good.
You know, it's
Yeah.
always been ironic that we could punish people for their mental illness or their addiction and put them in jail forever, but we can't mandate that they actually get treatment. It's an odd paradox.
Well, we do. We mandate they get treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll get to that.
Yeah, so I had many hours of direct contact. Attend many self-help meetings with participants, educate them on multiple pathways of recovery. recovery capital. I do a lot of driving too, actually, which has increased, and best practice for National Treatment Court vaguely touches on peer support, doing transportation, and what I like about what they said about it is you don't give rides to individuals just to give them a ride. If I have a participant that I have no rapport with and there's no actual beneficial progressive conversation happening and they only reach out to me for a ride, I would veer away from that, but that's not usually the case. They usually don't ask me for rides until they become very comfortable with me, and then the ride consists of, we'll stop and get a coffee, and then they're just unloading to me about the stressors of their day or their new job and all of these things that they have going on, which I mean, I don't mind getting out of the office and stretching my legs, but also it seems much more organic and they're much more relaxed when we're driving to their appointment at MFS, or I'm bringing them to the hospital or bringing them to work or any of those things. So the transportation piece is huge. Brokering local resources, which admittedly I don't do that much of. I was actually, the next slide is data that I put into a graph and it's resources recommended. And I was thinking about brokering local resources, and I would attribute a lot of that to Allison is great at networking. Most of the local available resources are right there. Everyone on the team knows about them, so participants are already aware of them out of the gate. I mean, I've actually spoken info sessions at House of Corrections, and potential participants or people who are inquiring about the program are intrigued about it because they have heard about all the resources available already once you're in the program. So that is great. The next slide. This is, I know, I love qualitative data, but I know quantitative data is more sought after, so, and Allison, kindly, and I'm thankful she did, said we should probably make a bar graph, which was also great for me because I collect this data for the BJA grant that I'm here under, and I've had it running for about 2 years, and I have not put it into a bar graph like this, and it was really good for me to look at. So these are the different services rendered as recorded by BJA, report to them. Pro-social employment services, work on driver's license, coaching general, service other, service vocational, transportation, housing assist, medical assist, educational, referrals made, resources recommended, and meetings attended. I was looking at this, I actually put this together not too long ago. When I was looking at it, two things jumped out to me. Coach in general is the highest one by far. And when I first started, I was thinking that seems so like big, and it just seemed, I don't know, I guess I keep it at big. I was always spinning my wheels about like what was the significance of that, I guess, because I really like when I'm getting things done that are tangible in my own personal life. That's my personal bias. And then the other one is meetings attended is the second highest, and there's a quote that connection is the opposite of addiction. And while it sounds very corny and cliche, it's very true. And I think the fact that after a little over 2 years, coach in general and meetings attended are my highest two is a testament to that. I know when I first attempted to get sober before it even stuck, I had no one around me that I enjoyed being around that felt just relaxed and organic to talk to on even just a social level, let alone like anyone who's gonna help me progress in my life. Yes, and then I think the meetings attended, they can socialize with other people that are in recovery that they vibe with, and then come talk to me at the office. So I think those two being the highest on the list is a testament to the quote. And then the next two, service, transportation, and housing assistance, I think are a testament to the two biggest socioeconomic barriers that participants and people with substance use disorders and or mental health and criminal records, the two biggest problems that they have when trying to rebuild their lives. Yeah, and then it's also a testament to the fact that I like to think that I'm helping them with those. I mean, the data kind of shows that I am. We have to track another 5 years out to see how long it's sticking, but it looks good right now, I will say. So, yeah, I think that's a good summary of what I'm attempting to do.
So, we waited for years for the peer support guidelines by All Rise to be released. All Rise used to be NADCP, the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, to release their guidelines on peer support. And they finally came out. We kept waiting and waiting, and every conference they'd say they're gonna be released, they're gonna be released. So once they were released, Seamus and I reviewed them, and we met every single component of the guidelines. I mean, I had done a lot of research before we hired Seamus, but he had done absolutely everything, and everything that we created. And a lot of it was just us brainstorming on his role. And it's truly an advocate role. I mean, I think, and even like whether or not you're in staffing or not, we just had a training last week. Unfortunately, Seamus took his like only vacation. It was recovery capital. And they're like, so who here administers the BART 10? And I was the only one of all the drug court teams who got to raise my hand. I'm like, Seamus does it, but he's not here. So a BART 10 is basically just tracking all your assets and all the recovery capital you have. And he's done a great job, and we got a lot out of that training, which we'll share with Seamus. And just his role is just undeniably needed on every team. I know now every single court in New Hampshire is trying to get a peer support. SOS has provided and covered, I think, 4 courts now, but we're really fortunate. I mean, if we're able to expand it all, maybe I'd get a female, but it took so long for people just to come to his door. And we do not mandate it. We don't say you have to see Seamus. Like, one of the requirements in drug court, treatment court, is that you have to have a sponsor recovery coach. That being said, like, we don't ask who it is. We don't follow up that closely, right? But Seamus, just by sheer who he is and meeting with everyone goes to see him. The only thing BJA prevented was him meeting with violent felony offenders. So then we have the opioid abatement grant. So we track that time, because there's a few violent felony offenders who were not allowed to meet with him, which was so restrictive. So fortunately now he can meet with all of our population, which is great. Okay.
Just a few quick questions, if you don't mind. What does it mean to be, what's the change in being certified now?
He's asking about the money.
How the money, okay.
No, so it's a, go ahead, Gina, want to talk about
I don't
CRSW?
know if you want to speak to the money aspect of it, because I know we had discussed that, I believe that we could bill insurance. When
We can't bill while he's covered by the federal grant.
Yes, once I leave the grant,
We could bill for his son.
relative value asset would make me, I believe, after.
Well, that's a good thing.
I mean, then on top of that, just, I think it has helped me with my perspective. I will admittedly say, I'm confident in myself in all facets of life. I mean, to my detriment in the past when I was using substances, but, I think to have the balance of what would come organically to me when I'm thinking about sobriety myself, and then pair that with all the trainings that I have had that are a result of getting certified. It's a lot of good trainings and educational tools pertaining to how to speak to an individual in a way that is more therapeutic and recovery oriented, as opposed to just being out front of an AA meeting, smoking cigarettes with someone and talking. And a lot of the things that I now know that I wouldn't know if I had not become certified.
That's
There's a
great.
lot of trainings that he has to keep up with.
No, I
to
think
be
that's-
recertified.
I think it's great. It just adds to the overall credibility of the program. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that people are starting to learn how to work, to come to you is because by word of mouth. And that circle, that's the biggest thing. There's a trust circle, and if somebody says this is an outlet where you can really trust, and you've built that over time from what I'm hearing.
Yes,
And that's a good thing.
It helped that I'm from Keene
Yeah.
and been in that lifestyle here, but
Do you have to do reality checks with them? I mean, sometimes like hard talks.
not as much as I would like. Or I can't as much as I would like, I would say. The advice that helped me the most is when people that I knew had my best interest at heart, just cut and dry looked at me and said, this is unacceptable, and this, that, and the third, and like, what are you thinking? It depends on my rapport with them. There are some participants that I've built really good rapport with that I can just be like, what are you doing? Like, this is not the move, and this is gonna have this, and this for negative outcomes. And ironically, I feel like the ones that I can speak to like that are usually the most sensitive, actually. There's a handful of them right now that won't hear that from anyone else, but they can with me, but there's some that I can't say any of that to, just my intuition and knowing how they are, and because they'll come to me and speak to me about things they might not speak to the rest of the team about. And once that happens, then I know I can have those conversations with them, and they'll listen more because they know that I'm not just throwing their dirty laundry out for them to get in trouble from their perception. And I think that it leads to them actually thinking about it, because they know that I'm not critiquing them or having those hard talks based on like penalizing them. It's negative for
Yeah,
them.
Seamus is never punitive in his role on Tuesdays. So he's there in the small team meeting on Mondays. That's when the small treatment team, Lisa was the case manager, Seamus and I, and probation officer Dave Bergeron and Gary Richard, the treatment provider, we make recommendations to the larger team. Tuesdays is the staffing and the court. And Seamus will never make a recommendation for anything punitive or jail. He serves merely as an advocate. So if there's a peer support person who's on a team making regular recommendations for jail, they should be off the team. It's just simply not that role. And it's a really delicate balance, because he's got to garner the trust of participants and the team. But we all respect how he manages the role. And it's hard. I don't know if I could do it, to be honest. Because he knows a lot of stuff that we have no clue about. And when we think people are doing well, that's just what we think.
And to speak to that, as far as my ethics on the team, I go by the mandatory reporting. Because it's a law in the state of New Hampshire, if someone's gonna harm themselves or someone else have to say something about it. Other than that, I don't, and I'll try and coax them into like, you know, because I'm not a therapist. I don't think there's other team members with credentials and the know-how of things that I'm not even close to. So if they're doing something and I think the team will help them, or if it's just gonna get worse if they don't come up front with it, I'll have that conversation with them.
This is you could be their first step of getting their foot in the door of recovery. And getting that trust, and then developing that trust that you can lead them to the team to start having trust too, is what I'm hearing too.
Yes,
You're gonna talk about him?
Dave Bergeron actually said when I first started, that I am a trusted liaison with the team and participants.
There's a participant who said, I never trusted you guys, but I trusted Seamus and now I trust you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I guess, and sometimes you need that, you need to break that logjam of mistrust, misinformation, whatever it is, not being able to look at themselves. And if you're giving them that opportunity, then that's a good first step, and that's the best chance they have to becoming valued members of the community instead of going down this path of destruction for themselves.
Yeah.
What was the other one I had here? How do you said, housing is one of the biggest issues and all that, but I would think too, one of the biggest issues they're facing, maybe I'm wrong, is changing their social pattern and still being able to find fun in their life, because fun for them within their social pattern was getting high on some level.
Circle of friends.
The circle of friends. So is that one of the hardest things that they have to figure out how to move through and how to get connected? And sometimes is AA and NA pattern productive to that, because they become associated with people within that group that may be struggling at the same time? Does that make any sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Me personally, and I'm not putting down any other pathway of recovery, AA is not my preference, and it's because of that. I don't feel the need to continuously hash out traumas and be around individuals who are still in or out of the streets constantly and in and out of substance use. But there are different pockets, or as you were saying, cliques in AA. So some of them I mean, it all depends on the specific individual, because I've seen people that get into AA and then they end up rubbing shoulders, trying to change their social group, and they end up rubbing shoulders with people that are doing the same thing because they're in self-help and they're in the recovery. But then sometimes they gravitate towards the people who are like really serious about their recovery and have substantial time, so. That one's a coin toss. I can never call it. I think it depends on me and Allison have this conversation about there's like a magic number. Something just clicks, and I don't think it's, you can't really pin down what it is. Everyone has a different explanation of what it is when it happens, but. The social group is, yeah, they're definitely the biggest aspect, hence the coach in general and meetings attended. And I was thinking about that even with the coach in general, it's almost double of meetings attended because it takes a lot for them to build rapport with just me. And then once they do that, even, and I can be sociable, especially in a setting that I'm comfortable in meetings, and I've been to a lot of them, so I'll bring someone in there. They're not quick to go out and even socialize with them, whether they're people they should or should not. The trauma, the distrust, and all these different aspects, and even some of the people who are really serious and something has clicked, they're very hesitant to start socializing with people. And we've seen that happen too. Someone who's doing great and being weary of being around people that are doing bad things, of isolating. So yes, it probably is the hardest aspect. I mean, even that, if they socialize well, they'll usually have a better chance on transportation and housing assistance. Like I'll tell people that, I've seen very few, I mean, I would almost say none. I haven't seen any community as supportive as the AA community. There's stories about people, I was in the hospital and family members weren't there, but AA members were there. And like, if you need work or you need an apartment, like, speak up at a large AA meeting, somebody will probably come up to you, but. Yeah, sometimes that brings undesirable connections, or they just won't do it because they're having a hard time, so, yeah, the socializing's massive issue.
Thank you.
I'm gonna blow through the next 22 slides, whatever I have left.
Oh, we're not done?
You want me to present another time, or you want me to
No,
go?
I'm good.
Okay.
We get that.
So I look at this slide and, I'm wondering if I should change my years of tracking, and here's why. In the very beginning, we were very quick to terminate, which now it takes forever. So even though the terminated number is still higher than the graduated number, 52 to 44, I think in 5 years from now, that'll flip. Because we're very slow to terminate. We give people 1,001 chances. Sometimes like the rest of the team is exacerbated by and frustrated by like the amount of chances we give people, but we're very slow to terminate. And the other data point that is very different now is the medication assisted treatment tracking. You'll see that like in the terminated, there's a very high number of people who weren't on medication assisted treatment. And you'll see a slide later about MAT, so I won't go into it in too much detail, but currently today, every single person in treatment court is on medication assisted treatment. So it's much more available. There's a lot more options and opportunities, and we're even researching new ones. So.
So these terminated people, they go out of the program and what's their destination most of the time?
So that's a really interesting question. If you want to go on to the next slide. So, before years ago, Chris would often say, oh, someone tried hard, we'd kind of give them a deal, they'd get jail. But they'd get county time. But Judge Colburn came last year and told Judge Smith that no, everyone should get their underlying sentence, and that's best practice. So my understanding is that's what's happening around the state. So if you plead into 2 to 6, you're gonna get the 2 to 6. I'm not sure. So everyone who pleads into drug court
Okay,
has an underlying sentence. It can be anywhere from 3.5 to 7. It can be 12 months stand committed. And they're always pleading to 5 years probation, and the terms of their sentence is that they successfully complete the treatment court. If they don't, they didn't always get their underlying sentence, but now a couple of judges have said, nope, the new policy is they must get their underlying sentence. So that changed about 6 months ago for our court. And Judge Howard is the new chief judge, so I'm wondering how he's gonna come down on that, but I believe that now everyone will get their underlying sentence. So we'll see how that happens, and I'll report on that next year, because I'm really interested in tracking that data. I've got to start adding that in. So,
So that's gonna affect Doug, right?
now, yeah, Doug will probably get less of our terminations, which will probably make him happy, right, Doug? Anyway, the next slide, as you can see, this is
Yeah.
the current.
Uh, I-
Thanks, Doug.
I don't think it'll change the numbers very much. Most of them are prison sentences. It's
Right.
occasional, as Allison said, that someone could plead out with only a 1-year sentence over their head, but that's probably not the norm.
Yeah, and it hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as you can see on the current slide, every single person in the program is on some form of medication-assisted treatment. It's interesting to me that we have the highest on methadone, because most people are on Suboxone. Sublocade is the injectable version of Suboxone. And Suboxone, and the one person who was on naltrexone is no longer in the program, but this is all the data from January of 2024, because I don't think I saw you guys. Next slide.
So everyone in the program this year has had
Yeah,
opioid use disorder, unless the one naltrexone happened to
Yeah.
be for alcohol, which is rare, but otherwise I assume that everybody had a diagnosis of opioid use disorder.
yes. And so
Wow.
here's the most fascinating thing to me, Doug, is, and I'll get to this, you're ruining my big surprise. But even though their number one choice is predominantly opioid use disorder, the highest positive tests results were cocaine, crack.
Yeah,
So, I mean, and we've seen a trend of more stimulant use disorder, cocaine, crack. But the irony is the positive test for like opioids has gone down significantly. And I'm wondering if I attribute that to the MAT or MOUD or just the trend of using more stimulants. It's really complicated.
it
So
is.
I'd love your take on it too, yeah.
Or drugs being mixed together, so, well, you'd still see the positives for
Right?
opioids.
Right, I was shocked at how low it was this year, unless the computer is wrong. Okay, next slide. And so, I kept this slide in because this is the last time I presented this to you guys, because I just wanted you to see the comparison of 2 years ago to the current year. So as you can see, opioid use disorder was still the highest at the time, and this is their primary choice of, oh no, this is a combination of all their diagnoses. So, a lot of stimulant disorder as well as opioid always being the first for our people. And next followed by cannabis, and then a lot of other mental health disorders. And we have, and I don't think I created a slide for this, about 90 to 95% of our population reports significant trauma at one point in their life or another. So you'll see people with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is fairly high in this, generalized anxiety, major depressive disorder as a result, and only just a few diagnosed with ADHD, even though others have been put on medications while drug seeking. So the next slide is the current diagnoses. You'll see higher incidence of opioid. So this is it. The primary disorder that they're reporting is opioid use, followed by stimulant again, PTSD. So not a lot of drastic changes. But I track primary and secondary drugs of choice for treatment court, and in behavioral health court, I track 3 levels. And I'm happy to track more if you want, but as you'll see, we still are dealing with opioid use disorder, and you'll see, sadly, in the overdose data at the end, that this corresponds, but you'll also see a significant rise in the stimulant use disorder overdoses mixed with other substances. Any questions on this?
How come there's 2 stimulant use disorders?
Because, so this doesn't fully lay it out. So one is stimulant use disorder cocaine, which is a
Oh,
large
okay,
one.
I got you.
And the second one, and it doesn't put all the information, is stimulant use disorder unspecified.
Okay.
And that can be amphetamine and or other stimulants. Yeah, I don't know, I've got to change the language on that slide. So this is the current stuff that we're offering. The newest exciting thing is, so seeking safety, all of our treatment is online through Blue Heron, and they're trying to expand to IOP. They just hit another roadblock this week, which is kind of killing me because we're putting our people in other IOPs at the time. but they offer seeking safety, MRT, anger management. They do coping with anger, matrix, gender-based groups. So they do MRT for men and for women. Everyone gets individual therapy every week. We have yoga every Thursday. And when I first started with yoga in drug court, probably 10 years ago, it was seen as a promising practice, so we had to pay for it and the friends paid for it. But now it's considered best practice and evidence-based, so it's covered by the state grant. And they can get individualized DBT when requested. I think now only one of the clinicians, we had two clinicians trained in EMDR. So if that's required, that's available and proven effective online, which really surprises me. I've heard that said like over and over again, but EMDR is also good online, and that's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I remember you guys asked me last year what that was, but it's very effective for people with trauma and really successful. And they get case management 1 to 2 times a week, peer support as determined by Seamus and them. And the last thing we just added, which is super exciting, is equine therapy through Cooper's Crossroads. So she donated 4 sessions. And so one of our participants who's doing really well was eligible, and then that participant asked for additional funding through Seamus's grant, or maybe the state grant, I can't remember which, but we're gonna cover 10 more sessions for her. And so it's like the most exciting part of this individual's day. And we're also have another person enrolled who completed behavioral health, but we've been trying to get this program going for 3 years. So the fact that it finally started makes me super happy. And I don't know if you've been out to Dusty Dog and their Elm Farm location, but they're beautiful. And to see this connection with animals from both programs, these individuals are so excited, and they're also going to volunteer. And there's lots of proof that equine therapy is like one of the most effective methods for helping people. So I'm so excited that we
It's part of
started.
the equine mucking the barns.
They do everything.
No, that's good. My daughter said it was one of the best. She rode for
Discipline,
years, but she
right.
said being able to clean the animals area after and to wipe them down and to just put them in stall, knowing it's clean and knowing he's wiped down and all set was just as therapeutic as it was the ride.
They didn't even get to ride the first 3 sessions. So it was really just cleaning and learning the way around the barn.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping these 2 end up volunteering there. So Seamus, Patrick Hanahan and I have been providing transportation because they don't have rides to get out there.
Yeah.
So once again, like you'll find our 2 biggest barriers continue to be housing and transportation. Ta-da, housing. So I don't know why green individuals are those who have their own apartments. And, you know, I'm wondering, I'm gonna do a slide next year if you guys want, that would show their housing upon admittance and upon completion, because I think that's an interesting thing to see. The largest light blue are clearly our unhoused population. We have a lot of people in shelters. Someone living in a tent, we're trying to move into a shelter, and the other programs. So it's still like, we're struggling. Seamus and Lisa constantly are trying to help people find apartments, and through Pathway Home, through Keene Housing, create a program, Pathway Home, we're able to provide vouchers and subsidies for housing, which I'll get into a little bit later on. But the sober living that we have tracked here is actually not core certified, or I forget what the latest NHPRR certified housing. So I say sober living very lightly in this because it's not an approved location where we can apply funding. We have many resources for housing funding. That being said, we still can't find locations. So we have housing funding through Seamus's grant. We have housing through Community Housing Program, CHP. We have the Pathway Home Program, and the state budget. We also budgeted for housing, and yet we still have homeless people. They have to get jobs and maintain employment, which is really hard. We're near an active, addiction, and also a lot of them get turned away from any locations. And I know you kind of don't get thrilled with Keenan. Right now, I don't think we have anyone at Keenan anymore. We had people there as a temporary stopgap, but we don't have anyone there right now. But at least they made
The
it.
idea is right.
I'd rather be in
The
the
owners
woods.
could do more for the participants that are living in there.
Yeah.
Right.
People have to put barrels up against the doors because the wind blows the doors open. And they have families with kids in there. And so, I mean, it's just,
So
it's not a great area.
we've been working in conjunction with the city, like we would pay for a week and the city has been picking up. So the city's really been incredibly helpful with us as far as providing vouchers for housing and also getting hotels. And we've used 2-in-1 as well. That being said, our program with push from Seamus, thank you, is moving towards a housing first model. So before we like throw all the requirements on them, we're like, get them stabilized, get them housing, which is really hard to do in a community where there's what, 1% vacancy rate. So we're really struggling with that.
Do we have a lot of sober housing? I know of some, but do we have,
So the one-
especially on the female?
So, no, there's 0, but Seamus through the SIN mapping is in a group of people who are working on getting sober living for women in Cheshire County.
Yeah, cause there's none in the whole county, which is distressing for female participants because they'll get sent to sober living outside of the county's jurisdiction. And then when they complete it, the treatment recommendation for that facility is now you should attend IOP, but they're not allowed to because there's not enough supervision to take the place of probation or parole. So they have to come back to the county and they'll go from a nice treatment facility and then want to go to a sober living facility and they can't do it. And then they have to come back and go right to a shelter. But yeah, it's myself, Judy Gallagher, behavioral health court, Marty Barnard from the doorway. Said Matt Bohan from Live Free join us because we don't figure we didn't need to reinvent the wheel with sober living, and then Lisa Record, case manager with treatment court, and Meg's there, a Serenity Center, we're on a committee to try and start a sober living home. I think Cheshire County. Hopefully feels like we're gaining a little traction, but it's slow, steady progress.
So is there a difference between sober living and a treatment? Like.
Oh, you're
there's
talking transitional living?
a
from a treatment?
Transitional living or.
One
just
place
like-
that had that Bridge Street folded. We
What
don't
about
have,
the-
this process, this
What's the place up on Court Street? Is that
That's part
nails?
of Live Free, right?
That's like very good.
Live Free kind of has a monopoly in key,
Yeah. So are they also the ones out by the jail?
yes.
The jail location is their detox facility going on Court Street's PHB, 30 to 60 day treatment.
And that's for males?
Yes,
And what about Wyman Road? What's that?
You're not talking House of Hope, right?
I don't know what that is. It's probably, that's probably what it is, that like just a treatment thing that you have to belong to. That's not, okay, we're gonna keep moving on.
So next slide, so, best practice generated from All Rise is, that your incentive to sanction ratio should be 4-to-1, but I've heard there's a push to 10-to-1, so this is gonna be exciting when you see this. So right now, we do have a lot of money, thanks to the funding, Chris, for incentives, from the statewide grant, from the state friends and the local friends. So I'm not gonna read every single one of these, if you're curious about it. So we have added on, I would say, almost too many incentives. The chief judge sat in our court 2 weeks ago, because we didn't have a judge for a week. And he said, you guys have more resources and incentives than any program I've ever seen. He said we're a little too kind, but we do give out a lot of incentives, as you can see. So for instance, we have a wheel in our courtroom. So every time we go to a training, we learn about incentives, we try to add them. We have only not been successful, I think, with the kudos cards, and that's just kind of hard. I'm not gonna talk about them. So basically, a lot of the goals in treatment court are proximate goals, meaning just to show up, right? So if you show up to treatment, if you show up to Seamus, because he's not mandated, if you are present for your curfew check, show up to your UAs and all your treatment, you'll get a little benchmark and a raffle ticket. So we have a monthly raffle winner, and then the benchmarks, you get 5 little rolled up slips. Thank you, Seamus, for creating the bowl. And they get like polls from the bowl each week. So we have a ton of incentives. We also have an all-star board and an MVP. We do, as you can see, we do shout outs. And so we try to change it like seasonally, like we had Swamp Bats tickets on there. We have movie tickets now. This list probably will not be as extensive when we don't have all of our federal funding. So we'll see. But right now we're able to do this. I'm pretty frugal. So the state budget, we have enough money, but they limit gift cards at 10. We have some gift cards, like the big monthly winner gets a $20 gift card. There's that same level on the wheel. But basically, the drug court model is a behavior modification program. So you want to incentivize people more so than be punitive. So just remember 4-to-1 is the goal. Next slide, are sanctions and incentives. And part of that are therapeutic interventions, which don't count as sanctions per se. So therapeutic interventions, or they're also called therapeutic adjustments, are things like care and concern, where the small team treatment will meet with the participant to say, hey, we're worried about this, and we'll follow up with them. Or, we'll send them to a higher level of care or send to residential treatment. One of the things on here, logs, we got rid of the logs, much to my dismay. The whole team fought me on that. We've had them for 11 years. We got rid of them about a month ago. I thought that it provided structure. We'll see if the new judge will bring it on. So the new judge just started last week on October 8th, and that's Judge Edwards. So there's a huge wide range of sanctions. If you miss your color, your urine testing, you'll initially get like double colors and then daily UAs. So all these sanctions and incentives we use a grid that we follow. And they're graduated. So if you commit the same thing more than once, then it'll level up, and we have a beautiful colored grid that I can try to spend like 5 hours explaining to you, or I can send you a copy. Half the team doesn't know how to use it, but we work from that. And so that's all the sanctions. And now the next slide. So if you look at so 2024 is not over, but since January, we've given out 1,438 incentives and 194 sanctions, and 71 therapeutic interventions. So our ratio is 7.4-to-1. And to be honest, I know it's higher, but I don't list every single benchmark that they get. I'll just do benchmark in 5. So I could probably add a couple hundred more to that even. So we're way above what's recommended by best practice. So that's actually positive. It's good news.
Well, it's not a bad thing. I mean, the most effective treatment, I think, is catching people doing something right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And
and they love
no matter
it.
how small it is, it's just an attaboy or.
I mean, I've seen studies that say judicial praise is one of the most positive and effective. I don't really see that yet, but maybe we will.
Some of them really like it.
Yeah.
I've heard participants say like, thought I'd like a judge. Good when you're, that they're coming around.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, I mean, if you think about all their previous interactions with judges
Sure,
have not been very
bad, yeah.
positive, yeah. So drug tests, so this is the one that most surprised me. Heroin, there's no more heroin. I think the slide is off. Cause, yeah, this
Wow,
looks like the
cocaine.
labels are off. And it's.
How long's that been going on, cocaine?
Well, so it's crack, really not cocaine, it's
Oh.
mostly crack. And then I think some data points are missing on this.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Or you have more alliance.
Huh. Well, that's a bummer. All right, so I can just tell you, because heroin doesn't even really exist anymore. It's mostly fentanyl, which I'm not seeing in here, and opioid. This doesn't track.
Over, yeah.
So what I'll tell you, and I have to fix this slide. I just realized that.
Fentanyl's probably right below amphetamine.
So fentanyl was high, but I mean, what's shocking to me, which is most notable, and so that's opioids. I don't know, so clearly all the written labels didn't come out on this. So the highest below the amphetamine is gonna be the opioids, right? So that'll be fentanyl and all the other opioids, which is not listed here for some reason. But what shocked me most was the most significant number of cocaine that I've ever seen. But there's an increased use. We've had some meth, which is the amphetamine, that's methamphetamine. The benzos, alcohol has gone down significantly, but remember that we're a small court. So when we have people that it's their primary use disorder, alcohol, then we'll see that spike higher, but our 2 people who had alcohol use as a primary drug of choice, have since either graduated or been terminated. So what we're seeing now is an abundance use of crack cocaine, some opiate use and methamphetamine. and I gotta fix that. So here's your primary drug of choice. Looks like I didn't do it, so it's still opiates. Opioids are still the primary drug of choice. Which surprises me when you see the testing, but maybe that shows you the effectiveness of MAT. The stimulant use, amphetamine, stimulant use, cocaine. So, I mean, if you look at this graph of 24 especially, you see 3 people who report stimulant use cocaine as their primary drug of choice, right? But if you just compare that to like the positive tests, clearly that must change because while they're in their program, they're, they have the blockers, they have the Suboxone, so they're not gonna use opiates because it's gonna be blocked. So now then they all switch to cocaine or other stimulants and other drugs to still, deal with their addiction. But I just found it so fascinating that still our highest percentages people reporting opiates. And that reporting is based on their use, right? As a child, it's not like today my first drug of choice is X, right? It's based on their use over their lifetime. So I just find this really fascinating, and I am sure that in like 5 years, this slide will completely change. Next, Doug, how does this make you feel? This is a first that we are 100% white. It's a little depressing. So I compare it to the demographics from the
wow.
people. Yeah. So have to say that's sad and not a good reflection on treatment court. That being said, there was only one person who would have changed our data who was going to enroll in drug court. It would have been his second time. However, he was given another offer and is doing well. So he didn't enroll, which was fine. He's doing fine so far. And this is also, the age has changed a lot. I'm seeing a lot more older people. Originally we had a lot of people like 20 to 25 range. And I could go higher in that 48 plus, but there's only one person who's in that category. Otherwise I'll add more ranges if it becomes appropriate. But as you can see, like really the 33 to 42 are our largest population, and it goes down a bit. But this has changed because really our population has been much younger over the years. And and some people say like, maybe by the time you hit 40, you kind of want to change your life. And that's the motivation to come in. I mean, I can't tell you or anyone in this room what motivates people to enter drug court, right? For some, it's, their magic number. For some, it's to not go to prison. So I can't figure out really, and I want to track this nationally on why the census is getting older. So it's just an interesting fact for me. And we have seen an uptick in females, which is great. We're still always males, higher population in males. Phase 1, this is as of like today, we had 4 new people enroll, which is why you see a lot of people in phase 1. And if you look at our graduated terminated rate, it's exactly the same. And for males and female, it's increased. So you already see that progression of graduation rates taking over termination rates, which is what we're hoping to achieve. That being said,
79% male in the incarcerated, 21% female. So the pattern of females being better at asking for help, just like driving directions, is apparently continuing.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's other factors, but it's always been the case. There's more females entering treatment than males overall as a comparison to the baseline population.
Right. So this being said, all this phase structure is drastically changing, and I don't know what this will look like next year. All Rise changed all their criteria for phases. We previously had certain amounts of time in each phase and sobriety dates and points, and that's completely changing. So my guess is this slide will look different over the next 2 years. It'll probably take 2 years for the evolution of all the changes. Each phase is going to be individualized and set by treatment goal and be very, very different. And sobriety requirement is not required until the very end. There's a strong emphasis on recovery capital, housing, and peer support in the new model. And Recovery Capital, now they're revising the template too. I just saw a message yesterday. So lots of changes to be had in the future. I don't always love reporting this. So I used to get the data from Kim Fallon and now I got it from Susan Watkins. She originally sent me 10 deaths in Cheshire County as of August. This is from January, but it was actually 9. One was from Vermont. Most of them were male. I think 2 were female in that. And you'll see the changes, the stimulant use and others. And I can send you this report if you're interested. It's a little morbid, so I try not to focus on it too much. Just fentanyl alone was pretty high. And then she's got a lot of other substances mixed, fentanyl, methamphetamine, fentanyl and coke, fentanyl, meth and coke. And then there's still many more. I'll show you in the next slide the amount pending, but a lot of them have many other substances. Xylazine, an opiate, was also in 26 of the deaths this year and overdose deaths and contribute to 2 just straight death cases. Carfentanil also, I don't know if you know what that is. It's an elephant tranquilizer, super powerful and strong and not great to see. The next slide is tracking the overdose deaths over the years. And I'm just gonna knock on wood. We are doing better than we have in the last 2, 3, 4 years, so.
So does that mean that the last quarter of the year, we can expect a larger percentage of deaths? I mean, because that seems kind of low for
It
3
does
hours.
seem- and that-
Isn't the state always a little behind anyways, though?
So that was,
Even if that were, 2 quarters, that would be still good.
so I mean, everybody knock on wood, please, because the number's extraordinarily low. I've never seen it like that since, I first started. If you look before, I started 2013, I don't know whether there's some number, 2013 should be 2014. That should be
Is
2014.
any of this a reflection of first-time users? The deaths? Like, one of the things I was reading an article about colleges are grappling with that everything's laced with something. Not like the good old days when you could have, if you're gonna smoke weed, you were smoking weed. If you were, doing cocaine, you're doing cocaine. If you're doing shrooms, you're doing shrooms. Now it's like
You seem to be well versed on it.
I was gonna say, let me
Vocabulary.
rephrase that as the good old.
I'm just reflecting that. This is what the article, I'm reflecting what the article stated.
The article said good old days?
Has anyone
yeah,
seen this
actually-
article?
It said something similar to, not quite, that was my phrase, but it was like back in the 80s and 90s. That you could, when you were buying a drug, you were buying that drug.
So,
And now everything seems laced, and that what they're seeing is a level of increase in overdoses on colleges for kids that are at parties that don't know what they're taking and that they're laced with something. And that they're, Narcaning and all this other issues that are coming up.
so in the good old days, THC was like 3 to 12%. Now it can be 87% THC. So that's a lot stronger than the good old days.
Another aspect of that too, and I've seen people do it, if you lace drugs with fentanyl and benzos is a big one. Individuals become dependent on that drug. And they might get it somewhere else and it won't make them feel better and they don't know why. Because if they're getting cocaine and there's a different substance in it, they become physically dependent on it. They go get cocaine from someone else and it is just cocaine. They have to go back to that same person. So yeah, they're lacing everything.
So that's how they get their clients, because they hook them in.
Oh, that's evil.
And that's
Oh,
like,
man.
but that's like at, middle school level kind of, this is where these guys are getting long-term clients. Right? I mean,
Just marketing. Wow.
all right, sorry.
It's okay,
Sidetrack.
I'm almost done. So, this is the local friends, and what I forgot to put on this slide is, so these are donations and things they've done. So we do a class through UNH, a nutrition class. We just had our second session yesterday. Thank you, Christine, who's down the hall. She runs the class for us, and does a phenomenal job. It's a nutrition class. We are fortunate enough to do it at Nana Peer Support. And it's, the friends donated gift cards at the end of the class, if they attend all 4 classes, they get a $50 gift card to Hannaford. They used to give out $20 gift cards. There's Christine, that's fun. And we realized that $20 covers nothing. So now they've upped it to 50, which is really nice. They've also donated bikes, bike locks and helmets. There used to be some stuff from Andy, but now the new owners of Norms have donated stuff, and that's where they've also bought us some. The Friends of Cheshire County Recovery Courts also put on presentations in Keene and in Peterborough in conjunction with the Chamber, AKA Greater Monadnock Collaborative, it should say, right? All right, sorry about that. And the presentations were changing the culture around mental health. It's way past time. Judge Netta spoke, Judge Broderick spoke. We had speakers, Doug spoke at one of them, I believe, or Doug spoke at a presentation. There was another presentation at Avon Street at Monadnock Family Services. We did a presentation there. And then we did the one in Peterborough. And so that's just been great in raising awareness about the stigma of addiction and the stigma of mental health. And there was a great speaker, I think his name was, I want to say Tim Weeks, but he was a great speaker from Monadnock Family Services. We talked about his challenges and his road to recovery in mental health. We had a former board member who donated 2,000 last year. We have 2 new members I'm really excited about. Kelly Griffin from Keene Housing. She came to observe mental health court the other day, and Sarah Tatro. So how we met Sarah is Seamus, Lisa and I did a presentation to Leadership Monadnock, and they were a great group this year, and they were excited about a project that one of our participants was doing for her Give Back project. So you have to do a Give Back project to graduate. And she was doing bags for, it was for 100 nights, right? And so she put together bags of necessities. So Sarah helped raise donations for that project, which was really helpful because we don't want participants to spend their own money. And so Sarah was instrumental in helping us with that. And then now she's become a new member of the Friends. And they just came out with a new grant application. So when participants are requiring or making requests, they fill out this application. So that sort of expedited the process. And Patrick Keenan's also on the Friends as well. So that's been really helpful. And they also, I convinced them to buy coffee cards for Seamus, because people don't always love meeting with Seamus in our office. And I, for some reason, can't use his grant for that. I don't know why. I guess it violates federal guidelines. So the Friends donate, because they're much more relaxed talking to him at Dunkin's. He's not going to like Starbucks. But they bought 4 Dunkin's cards for us and are offered to do it again, which is really nice because it's much more relaxed. Final takeaways. So we have been following best practice in our treatment. We have increased graduation rates. We have wonderful Seamus, who's now certified, CRSW. His grant ends in October, so we want to keep him, hint, hint. We've added equine therapy. We had our current nutrition class. We have a lot of resources and we have a great community. When Judge Howard observed our court, he's like, how have you gotten all these resources? I said, you know, Cheshire County is really collaborative. So there was a couple of dental clinics over the last 2 weekends, and I sent that out to the participants, and one thanked me profusely. He's like, you saved my life. I've had this abscess tooth. They extracted it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was really nice. Because I'll tell you that we give a lot. We don't always get thank yous. We're rich in resources. So we're continuing with the Pathway Home program. That's been a huge boon. Southwestern does tenancy budgeting and financial literacy classes for us. John Latender does the Narcan training for our people. We make sure everyone goes to that at least once or twice while in the program. We supply everyone with Narcan. The most exciting thing, and I hope this works out and I can report, is that we're trying to become a trauma-informed court. And I'm just gonna, so Brian Meyer is an expert. He works with veterans with PTSD, and he's an expert from All Rise, and he writes the guidelines for how to deal with trauma and to become trauma-informed court. We've done some things, but if this works out and it gets approved, he will be mentoring us in our roles to become trauma competent. He will observe the courtroom. He will offer trainings to our team. And I know Suzanne's like, where's the certification? It's not a certification. And I don't know if it's gonna work out. Brian's working with us. We've discussed and written out the scope of work. We're hoping to amend Seamus's grant to maybe use some of that funding. We might have other funding that we could use from the state. But it would be huge. We'd be the first trauma-informed court in the country if it works. So it's aspirational, But Brian's on board, which is really exciting. Seamus, and a former clinician and I met with him in May in California to discuss it, and he's open to it. I've known him for a long time. And
A quick question for you.
yes,
How much, I mean, what are you talking about for like?
his scope of work.
Yeah,
Well, I can send it to you. There was his original request, but it is not within federal budget guidelines for per diem. So I can email it to you. It might be about 40,000. But that would be over a period of time. It might be less, so I'm not sure what the final number was based on, we had to edit the request for the federal guidelines. So I can send that to you. We have a brand new judge, Edwards, who started last week. She seems great. She's been in Stratford for a year. She came with us to Recover Capital training. And thanks to Doug for the next line, so.
So how does that work with judges? They're on like a circuit for a year or two and then they'll change over to another,
Such a good question.
I mean, because they seem to change all.
But they do in
Yeah.
Cheshire. We're a starting ground for people. We train them and then they leave and go to better places, bigger places, different places.
I
So,
don't know if it was like the army, you put in your 2 years and then you go somewhere else.
so you got the magic number. So best practice is that a judge stay in a treatment court for 2 years.
Yeah.
Judge Kissinger, we had for 2 years. Ruoff, we had for 5.5. Judge Leonard, left pretty quickly because it was just a far commute. She's been with Belknap for a long time now. She's great. So Judge Smith just finished 2 years and she went to Nashua. They were a mentor court. I guess that just expired, but she wanted a bigger court and I think that's just easier for her. It's a great team there. And so Judge Edwards was at Stratford for a year now. Hopefully she won't leave us anytime soon. So, not gonna.
Depends on where they live, it's probably a lot.
It is,
Yeah,
so
sure.
no one wants to live in Keene, basically. It's
Why
like kind of,
not?
I don't know. I really don't know. But a lot of them live, closer to the seacoast or other areas. And, thank you, Doug, for this number. So savings to taxpayers, because everyone wants this. The cost of a year, oops, it should say DOC, sorry for the HOC. That's last year.
House.
Yeah, House or Department of Corrections. Doug, what's your preference, DOC or HOC? Did we lose him?
No, he's muted.
Okay.
Doug, you're muted.
My preference has been department, but our sign up
Okay.
front, granite sign, still says House of Corrections, and it's
Yeah.
it's reasonably interchangeable.
Okay,
More of the county jails are using the term DOC, I find, in the last, number of years for whatever reason. I don't know.
yeah, I know I've changed in other places to DOC, but I cut the slide from last year. Sorry about that. So Doug gave me this number yesterday. It's approximately 68,080 for the cost of 1 year. Residents at Cheshire County Department of Corrections and the cost of treatment in Cheshire County, oops, $2 signs, $16,338 for saving.
On purpose too.
me
It
too,
was.
emphasizing.
I'm emphasizing how much we save. Can you tell I did most of this on Monday? The savings of 51,722 per individual. So that's a huge savings and people are getting treatment and help and hopefully not re-entering the criminal justice system. That being said, I have a little frustration. The last slide, I didn't realize how blurry that picture was, big. This is just the team. We had a hike on the left. We have the new judge and Judge Ruoff is in there, and I think Judge Smith's in the back too. On the left is the hike we just did at the state conference, and that picture on the right is from yesterday, which unfortunately Seamus is not in there. Alex Parsons is sadly leaving us. He is leaving law and staying at the public defenders as a investigator. So that's really sad because he's been with the team, apart from me, the longest 9 years. So from the left, Lisa, case manager, Dave Bergeron, our probation officer. We're fortunate enough to have Caitlin join us. She's the social worker at the Keene Police Department, and she's been really a huge asset to the team. Michelle's wonderful. She does a lot of our assessments and helps getting people placed once they leave the jail. It's Michelle Barasa, clinical case manager at the jail. Judge Edwards, Alex Carey replaced Chris McLaughlin on the team. She's assistant county attorney. Unfortunately, that pictured me, and Eli just joined the team. So not pictured in there. Joel, who's with the Keene Police Department, detective. Gary, our treatment provider. Seamus, who you get to see in the flesh. And Stacy, who is the director of Blue Heron, our treatment provider. and is now seeing our female population and a few others and running the women's MRT. And that is Cheshire County Drug Court in a nutshell. Any questions?
Question, yes. Narcan, how many individuals do you think that saves compared to the number of overdose deaths?
Oh, I have that data for, shoot, I didn't put that in. So really good question. And we'll never, ever, ever get a real answer.
I'm sure of that.
Because no one, like, I just remember when they, years ago, when they first started giving Narcan, I used to get data from the fire department. And I used to get data from, so King Police will not administer Narcan?
They won't.
No.
Curious.
But the fire department always has, since I've been here. They do have data. I didn't get it this year because there's no reliable way to track Narcan. Because we give it out, we give out a ton of it, the state gives out a lot of it. The continuum of care gives out a lot of Narcan, so we'll never know how often it is used.
What could be done to get the police department to be giving it?
I was at the Nahataga Annual Conference, 4 weeks ago, and the governor and some other people helping him compile this are working on handing down state regulations about where in the community should have Narcan and be distributing it is one of the biggest aspects to trying to fight the opioid crisis. So I think that will take place within the next year or two. Would probably be some resistance, I would imagine, but I think it's inevitably gonna happen at some point.
Do the high schools have it?
I could check with John. So as you know, we put, because I was on a committee with John, we put Nalox boxes in the county buildings. There, and it's funny because they were resistant across the street at the courthouse, but they don't own the courthouse, so I was really glad you put them in. When I requested, nameless, they said no, and then I was like, well, you don't own the building.
We also had incidents there, so we should have them there.
Well, we've had people collapse in the courtroom, so that's definitely necessary. We have the box in our hallway as well, but we also have a large stash. Unfortunately, it expires rather quickly. So we do replenish it quite often.
Is it like yearly kind of thing? Or-
I think it might even be,
So there's no reporting necessary for when?
I don't believe it.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Money maker.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is it something that anybody can make that call? I mean,
It's kind of like COVID, right? You do home tests, do you call in, the government to say, yes, I'm positive for COVID? Think about it. When they were initially tracking COVID, right? The hospitals did all the testing so they could track it, and New York Times had like county and, in the water and whatever. But now we all have like tests at home, so.
so I remember when we had the drug task force there, the fire department was reporting that they did so many.
Right, I have all that data if you want it from years ago, but yeah, but they're just,
They slacked off on.
no, not at all, but they're only reporting the calls that they get. But we have people in the program who overdose and their friends have given them Narcan.
Narcan's too, is so accessible now through CVS, through wherever,
Yeah.
people can get it, so you
True,
can't really
yeah.
track the true numbers because
Right.
it's happening and you'll never hear about it. There could be a party going on, somebody overdoses, they Narcan them and they keep on partying.
There was an event here, an outside group had like drawstring bags with some resources in it,
We have them.
specifically Narcan.
We
in
have
every
those.
bag. Oh,
It
okay.
was, through the Dartmouth,
In the
we have a
goodie
box.
bag, you mean?
Yeah, Narcan
The
goodie bag.
Katie Sternberg from Dartmouth was doing a study, and so we have a lot of those bags in my office. If you want any, we have a ton of them. Yeah. Any
All
other?
right, any other questions? Jack, anything?
Well, I was just gonna say, a lot of times the Narcan, even if it gets used, it's not, they kind of administer it as a rule out thing. So if it doesn't do anything, they've administered it, but it could be that the person is having a different medical issue. And so we're flooded it so much and we use it, I'll say indiscriminately, that it's tough to determine the actual times when it's been effective in that circumstance. Because there's
Well, I
just
think
too much of it out and around.
another way to phrase the question is how effective is it when you use it on somebody who is overdosing?
Well, it's very effective, but the other side of it is the strength or the potency of the drug that might be causing the overdose could last longer than the effectiveness of the Narcan. And so the person could need multiple doses and multiple doses over time, which is one of the reasons why it's so important to get them to the hospital in the event that the Narcan wears off prior to the time that the narcotic would. So, I mean, it helps you at the moment, but the drug, the metabolism curves are different for the drugs and the Narcan, so it's helpful, but it doesn't really fix it. It just buys you some time, I'll say.
So Narcan won't hurt you if you're not overdosing?
No.
Correct.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
One other thing which I've been telling Allison for the last 5 3/4 years is that the Keen Elm City Rotary has a scholarship for your graduates, for your success stories, for the quote unsung heroes.
So can I ask a question on that?
Yes,
Because I was discussing that with Patrick yesterday, because he's part of the Rotary, so. Could someone from behavioral health court apply to get help for equine therapy, continuing education, treatment?
maybe.
So that's what
I'm
we're
not on-
thinking.
I'm not on the-
You can always apply.
Possibly, yes. What does it cost?
It's $75 a session.
Oh, perhaps.
Okay.
Work your
Does that-
magic, Doc, work your magic.
I've discussed it with Patrick, because it seems really unfair, because this is someone who is incredibly motivated, a community member. Done amazingly well through behavioral health court, and is also serving on our pretrial committee. And she's great, so our pretrial meeting is this afternoon, Doug has been spearheading that. But she's been it's really important for any program to have community members with lived experience.
Mhm.
And so she's been doing the equine therapy, and I would hate to see that be taken away from her for all the contributions she's done to our community. She does community service in many organizations in the community, and is a huge asset, and is just a wonderful human being.
Okay, letters of support will be very important for the scholarship.
I can do that.
Yes, you can.
All right,
And Seamus, just in case you might be interested in taking any courses,
I've told him that too.
consider.
Thank you.
He is currently in school.
Okay, where?
Doing online for River Valley, it's the only thing my schedule will allow. And it's not putting me in student debt, so I might, transfer to somewhere that will put me in a little bit of debt once I have my associates in May, so.
And you also get help through Cheshire County for classes.
Great.
Just one big change, not in treatment court, but in behavioral health court. Judy Gallagher, who's been with us for 13 years, is leaving, and we've hired Marty Huckins, who's a great clinician, has a lot of supervision experience, and has been supervising Judy for 2 years for her licensure. And worked at the jail for a couple of years. So thank you, Doug, for that background. And she was at Beach Hill. She's got a lot of experience, and we're very excited for her to start.
Yeah, program has a strong foundation, she'll just build off it.
And she's excited about pretrial programming too, so.
The only other question I had, Allison, was did Kim Fallon retire or change?
So that's, so Susan Watkins was great. She got me the data right away. And when I asked her that very question, I haven't heard from her since. So I'm not sure what happened. Because
good.
Kim was a great resource.
Yeah, and she'd been there, 20 years. She started in 2005. She's very dedicated and very intense, but I was also thinking that after 20 years, maybe she needs to take a breath, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking she may have retired.
Yeah, she's a great person.
Well, I've only known her through emails, but she's been super helpful for all the years I've been here.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Right, we're gonna
A great presentation.
Thank you, Bob.
move on. My report, let's see, where do we start? There's a thing that was mentioned
Of caffeine dependency. Excuse me.
All right, we'll run.
Okay.
Make him run.
He rides his bicycle everywhere.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's funny that that one slide with all the positives, it shows up in the data field, but not on the slide.
It happens to me too.
Yeah, why does that
in
happen?
creating
Too much
graphs.
data?
Sometimes it changes when you put it in a PDF form, it changes the margins, so then it kicks some things out. So I triple check and then it's still wrong sometimes.
Yeah, I fixed a couple of things. All right, thank you, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So I'll send you the numbers on Brian. I mean, it would be huge.
Okay.
Want to do it?
Just to irritate Chris, I'm gonna leave now.
We're on break. Technically, we can go on, but I'm not going to.
Thank you. Famous.
Yeah,
So he grew up in Keene.
King Kid.
Wonder what his age was when he became dependent. He referred to being 16.
I don't know, in this day and age. I'm hearing that they are pursuing elementary school. You know, that these dealers that are, it's not just, you know, it used to be high school. Used to be college, then went to high school, went to middle school, now it's, you know, they're looking even to go farther. So, all right, my report, let's see, there was a Facebook posting about, DART receiving a $6.7 million gift from Mr. Hayes.
Wow.
And they were focusing on strengthening their DART, you know, ambulance services and all that, so Scott Simons, who does Smart Ride, contacted me, said that, you know, it's gonna affect us as in Smart Ride or us as in Cheshire County EMS. And so I sent an email up to Kathy Wilbarger, and she said, exact words are, we need all Cheshire County EMS services, and there are no plans to take any business away.
What was what was the donor? What was the point?
That Lebanon, Dartmouth, Hitchcock, received a $6.7 million gift from a man by the name of Hayes that lives over on the seacoast. That his ask was the strength, he had DART helped save his life on multiple occasions, what I'm understanding. And so, they were really gonna focus on, you know, the DART is really start putting together, on some levels, stronger ambulance response, especially in the north.
Yeah.
Because there's real struggle there.
Yes.
And so when Scott Simons from Smart Ride heard about it, he was concerned that this may be something that affects us or Smart Ride itself. And I reached out to Kathy and she made it very clear no.
Yeah, there's so many needs elsewhere in areas that aren't as covered as well as we are, so I can.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an area of concern. I mean, I can remember literally 10 years ago, a pregnant woman up in Littleton had a complicated birth potential, and there was no way to get her anywhere in time to an OBGYN equipped facility. And I don't even know if she survived, but so there's plenty of need, particularly in the North Country, which is very suitable for air transport. And as we know, over on the coast. So we probably have the area pretty well covered.
Right, and you were right, we had, I was actually at a house hearing this past year. And there was an individual who is a state rep who's also a doctor up in the North Country. And he had a patient that needed to be moved and they couldn't move him for 3.5 hours. Because they didn't have any level of transportation to do so.
Right. Here, they could have done ground transport for this pregnant woman, but it was 3 hours away and she was like 2 hours into labor and about, you know, an hour for delivery. And so you couldn't have put her in a vehicle because she'd have had a birth in the back of the vehicle. So it's a very troubling circumstance. But
yeah. Just so that you, last week I made you aware that Monadnock Peer Support, we had a meeting with with Southwest Regional Planning Commission. If you remember, we supported a community development block grant for them, and they also received another $1 million. They've had a lot of turnover at senior leadership. They're behind in what the level of project that it needs to be done in getting the architect workings done, and nobody's been really forcing the matter. So on Friday at 5:30, I attended on a board meeting that they had along with Todd Horner and others from Terry Johnson from Southwest Regional Planning Commission. We just laid out the facts of where things are at, and that CDFA is really wanting to know if they're gonna be able to move forward. And so I was very, very bluntly, said that the bottom line is that if we don't see movement in the near future, because they have to have the project done by the end of the year, at least the community development block grant, by 2025, they have to have that. I said, if we don't see, we couldn't even think about applying for a waiver if we're not seeing any movement done. Then, since then, they've designated an individual to focus on this 100%. And I'm gonna be getting monthly reports from Terry Johnson. And I said, we have a great reputation with CDFA. This corner of the state on a continual basis gets community development block grants given to them more than any other state any other portion of the state. And so I said, I'm not gonna put that at risk. So either you guys get your act together and do what you need to do to get the project moving forward, or I'm gonna make a recommendation to the commissioners that we pull the community development block grant, which is our authority to do so. And
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
and so they have met, they were given an outline of criteria, and by Monday, they had met like 80% of those. And CDFA got the things that they required by Tuesday. And so they're heading in the right direction, but they just need to get moving forward and getting this RFP'd out. And I said, your architect, I don't know why it's taken so long to get the drawings done, but they should be getting it. They should have had this months ago. And so.
Yeah, I think the caution is appropriate because as we know, in spite of their best efforts, the agency, its leadership has been troubled. And so I think that they really probably have earned some hypervigilance by outside entities to make sure that their house is in order.
Yeah. And the incoming chair for this year is Eli. So I'll keep tabs on it through Eli. So,
Do you think that leadership team has recovered from the recent?
yes. I think that they've got some interviews this week for a new director. They had an interim company like a lot what Jack does that came in for a period of time. And they have, two individuals that they've narrowed it down to, and they'll interview them this week and hopefully get that on board. I've also said to them that they should reach out to Steve Horton to see if he can help with the process on level 2. And I also explained to them that Southwest Regional Planning Commission has gone beyond what is the norm in my mind of really helping you with this project. And because normally they're about making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And we're just a pass through for financial, and you're actually the one that does the project, and you as a board have allowed that to put more pressure on them to get some of this stuff done, and they shouldn't be doing that. And Todd agreed with me. So it was, and I got to 6:30, and I said, it's Friday at 6:30. I've got guests coming in, I'm out of here. So, so that's that one. Revision Energy, they reached out, on my understanding is that they wanna have, I wanted to have you, here, and so it looks like we're gonna set up a time where we can meet.
Yeah, I'm interested in getting an informational session with them, because I have some serious questions about whether or not this is appropriate for us in the, in the times and how the processes are changing and whatever. And I don't remember enough about um, the, the project itself. I spoke with him on the telephone, yesterday,
Yeah, you told me.
and, he said that he's gonna bring somebody else in, we'll talk about it. What is your understanding of our participation in the project?
Initially, when we were looking at it and before, before the Cheshire Power was really a thing, we were looking to see if there was an opportunity for us to, if not build ourselves, have somebody and own, have somebody else that we could get energy from, whatever it may be, looking at any and all resources. And this popped up, but it was a project, this was like 2.5 years ago. And so it sort of died. And at that point is when we started looking at, Ledger and seeing if any of the cornfields in the city we could utilize, and, they were interested on some levels, but revision, their follow through was, we've had probably 4 meetings with them total. This will be probably the 5th time I've met with them. And their follow through hasn't been what we expected. So my thing is that unless they can show me, I get the whole carbon side of it.
Yeah.
But if us doing a project means that we're going to add layers to that 8.9 cents that we are paying per kilowatt, then it sort of, then that's a bigger discussion that everybody needs to,
Well,
and I want to hear that from them.
Well, what intrigued me though about even taking the meeting is that he said that this wasn't going to interfere with our third-party contract.
That's what I saw.
So that confuses the hell out of me.
That's right. Yeah, this is sort of new to us.
Yeah, so,
Because they've never brought that up.
yeah,
So if that doesn't interfere and there's no financial impact and we get another savings on some level,
yeah, yeah. I'm
then,
willing to listen, yeah.
it can't hurt us to
No.
listen to them.
No.
So that's just, so I sent him some times to see if they worked.
Yeah, but it sounded to me that it was, they're coming close with the project. The project is coming up, by the end of the year, they wanna start the bidding process and all that. So I'm not really, I mean, it seems kind of late for us to be on a short list.
Yeah.
But
It's like, where have you been all this time?
yeah,
Because we've literally met with him 5 times.
Yeah.
We've had him in Rod's office.
well, we met, I met with
2
Jude
times.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've met over the last 5 years, probably about 5 times, 4 times.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, set it up and we'll
Yeah.
talk.
All right. This Friday, NHAC, executive committee meeting, if anybody's going, I don't know, Bob, if you're going,
not.
okay?
Okay,
I sent you an email.
Okay,
Jack, are you gonna continue to work with, you're talking about the county?
New Hampshire Association of
Yeah.
Counties,
Yeah.
What's the question?
Are you gonna continue to work with the county association, as treasurer?
no,
No?
not normal.
Well, I don't know. I imagine that the opportunity will still be there.
I mean, he can go to the conferences and he can attend, he's an elected official.
Well, I
He can
was
go to
just wondering about our participation because Bob and Jack have been, and before that, anyway,
Somebody,
Chuck,
yeah, okay, so, and I don't
the
know.
person you took to see them.
Yeah. And because I don't know, what kind of a time commitment I could have going forward in the year, so I just wanted to, check with our participation, whether it would be.
What happens is
Well-
we have an opportunity for 5 membership. On the 5 voters, five, anybody can attend, but we have the ability for 5 individuals to have the ability to vote. And so in the past, that's been Catherine, myself, Cheryl, Bob, and one other that I can't think of, Doug, I think it is. And so we wanted to always have at least 1 commissioner on there. In my mind has gone between 1 and 2. So I think the new body is elected and we start, this is one of those setup things that we need to talk about. There's a
Well-
few other things too. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah, I think, you're gonna have two newly elected commissioners. I think certainly, if Claudia wins, I think it'd be integral to her orientation and sensitivity about Concord and legislation, that sort of thing. So, I think you really should, we should really be looking at training, Gloria or Rick, reacquainting, Rick on the Concord connection. Um,
Yeah, I think it's important that we have at least one commissioner on there, just because it allows you to have a voice in what sometimes as a whole, all 10
Right.
counties pushing forward. And again, it doesn't mean that the others can't attend, they can attend,
Yes.
they can attend any of the meetings that they have up there. It's just that at least one we have in a voting level. I mean, I've been on the executive, the leadership committee of the New Hampshire Association of Counties for probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years, and then I'm up for reelection this year. At an at-large seat. And so if I, take that, then I'll be on that too, and I'll represent, but that's just because it allows us to have a voice at the highest level with.
Yeah, and
So
I think a commissioner is gonna carry more weight than a treasurer at some of those hearing
Yeah.
interactions with state reps and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So the reason why I cannot attend on Friday is that that is the one medical meeting which I continue to go to, which is the New Hampshire chapter of the American College of Physicians.
that's more important.
For me, it is, yes. Having been involved with it since 1976.
All right.
So there.
We'll allow you then. All right, but those are just, I think those are things that as we get clarity after November's elections, that we'll start trying to figure out who wants to sit on the advisory council for New Hampshire Cooperative Extension. There's a litany of things that we just need to
I
talk
just
about.
say that because in the next couple of years, CPC&H and our projects, it's gonna become, much more time consuming than it even is now, so
Yeah.
I didn't want to overcommit myself.
Yeah, and I think too, that what's gonna be interesting is, by the end of this year, early next year, there'll be 4 counties that have joined us being the lead.
Mhm.
And then probably by the end of next year, you're gonna see 3 more join, because all of a sudden they realize the savings that they can have. And when I say savings, just so that it's on the record, a lot of times what the savings is that we're not gonna see the increase. It may be that we're paying still the same, but if we hadn't done this, we would have seen a significant increase. It may be an actual savings, and it may be that it's just that it's holding the fort where we are.
About $12 million
Yeah,
right now
yeah,
and growing, so that's.
yeah.
So I remind you also that the NHAC conference about Washington begins on Sunday, December 10th.
November.
November 10th, excuse me.
Yeah,
Through the
you guys are all booked.
Oh,
ready to
yeah,
go.
Can't wait.
So, gonna keep on going. We straightened out any issues we had with the 1.25 million on Monday morning. We decided, our job from the get-go has been to find the money, not do the project. And us holding on to the money and then giving the money to them when they've done something is us holding on to the project. And so we talked about it at length and decided, along with Joe, that they need to take this on. The money's gonna be sent directly to them. Don's not going away, Pete's not going away, Suzanne's not going away. I'm not going away. I'm gonna continue trying to find other avenues for funding, but they need to take this project and really start doing the heavy lift. Appoint somebody to take this project on. They have done that. And so, we told, the Homeland Security Director Buxton on Monday that that's how we're moving forward. He's fine with it. So they're gonna get the money. They're gonna start moving forward with the project with the support of others.
Who's gonna be managing it for them?
Cassie. And they're gonna hire and Pete Danucci, they're hiring to help help support her with the project. Expectations along with Don, they're hiring him and and we've already given them a lot of our policies around grant management so that they understand that, and any questions they have, we're gonna guide them on through that.
Don,
So
Don
they-
Bliss, Don Bliss?
Don Bliss, yep, Pete Danucci, and so we'll go from there.
Okay,
November 7th at 1 PM, I'll be in Westmoreland, because they're discussing the bridge. They're pulling together a lot of people from the Department of Transportation to talk about, you know, what they can and can't do. They don't feel that the bridge will last,
Yeah,
especially with the storms that we have last, the length of time that it will, and so they wanna see if they can get the bridge moved up. And then they're trying to figure out if that was the case, what's the true cost and what will the 20% meet and be from the.
is DOT gonna be there?
Yeah,
that's the town bridge, Partridge Brook.
yeah,
Yeah, cause one winter storm could take that out.
I know, but we've been saying that literally for 20 years.
Yeah, well, things are getting worse and they're not gonna get any better.
yeah. So that's where we're at, there. I got a call yesterday and Senator Shaheen invited me to lunch today at noon.
How about that?
So she and I will be going to the stage so that I can start priming her for more money, I guess, I don't know, but so we'll,
What kind of flowers did she like?
no,
I handle that part.
yeah. So, yeah, well, but I wanted to talk to her about what we're doing here. I also want to talk to her about where we're how we're addressing certain issues and give her an opportunity at some point to come back and learn more about Connected Families New Hampshire, come back and tour the EMS facility, hear about a restorative community program, some of these programs that are outside the norm of what counties are doing, and also talk about other projects that we have out there, so, and see if she'll co-sponsor with a Republican some of the things that we talked about with NACO around Medicaid increases, Medicare increases
Right.
at the federal level, and also seeing that whoever the next president is, that they can work with them to see if there's ability to put monies aside for EMS 911 infrastructure. So I'll see if that's it.
Did you get any recent feedback from them on whatever they're doing?
No, I just, no, I actually, this week put an email into the individual we talked to.
Yeah.
And just to follow up, because they, one of the things that I may want to do is see if that they have their in March, I think, or maybe March or February, they have leadership, where you go to DC and you hear about legislative actions, you meet with their legislative teams. And then they set up times for you to meet with your legislative leaders, and if that's the case, they may want to just fly down and attend that NACO meeting, just because I want to get my bang for my buck of if this is really but I gotta talk to the legislative aide that we talked to, that's why I put the thing up this week. So,
Yeah, when is that?
I'll get the firm date and get back to you. I just know it's either, I think it's March.
I just think we ought to the extent we can, keep some pressure on them, because, we're still just a small state up in the corner that has never really gotten a lot out of NACO. And I think we need to be a little squeaky for them I just want to keep them focused on a solution.
Oh, I don't disagree with you, and so, I'm just sending Kate a real quick message. When is the DC? Yeah, I just disagree with you, because if not, it just gets lost, but I really think this is an opportunity for us to help create some bipartisan, I mean, everybody has to understand that we're so focused on that last mile that we're forgetting some of our truly needed services that we need to upgrade the infrastructure for. I mean, it all help, I mean, just look at North Carolina, look at Georgia, look at Florida. If they don't have a strong system in place, that's even worse than what they had. So. All
Yep.
right, and that's what I have. Any old business?
Yeah.
Any new business?
Yeah.
Any, vote to accept the weekly manifest and minutes of October 9th, 2024. Commissioner Wasmac,
Aye.
Commissioner England,
Aye.
and Commissioner Clark. All right, calendar, anything there, Davis?
Nothing, just the officer graduation next week.
All right, and do we have we been able to get the calendar fixed so we can look at the next month yet?
Paragon is working on it, but it was available to me at least, so
Okay,
hopefully it is fixed.
all right. And then.
Well, let me talk about that a little bit, I mean. Is there, should we start looking
We
around
are.
to find somebody that's a little more responsive to?
Funny you should ask.
We,
Funny, I should.
yeah, because we've already started that
Oh,
process.
good, oh, good.
We actually, as you remember, Representative Eaton asked us to set aside some pro share funding to look at our website and redoing our website. We've actually found a website that we really like. Southwest Regional Planning Commission has a great website. He even looked at it yesterday and said, yeah, you're right.
Because
You
it
know?
could be much more proactive, I mean, interactive.
Yeah.
Than it is
Very
now.
much so.
Yeah.
And that's what
Still
we
doesn't
like. to
work.
do.
It still doesn't work. just so
Amazing.
you're aware.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it
And-
seems like this is another thing for 20 years. We've been talking about the website
Yeah,
through
know.
a variety of iterations, but
You
It
have at
worked-
least
it-
since 2018.
It worked when I
so.
did it.
yeah, yeah, and then so. But the other side of it is designing is one thing, hosting is
Yeah.
another. And we're gonna, we're gonna look at having it hosted in some place where, then, Davis can have more access to make changes.
Well, that's the way it has to be.
Yeah.
You know, we gotta have a console that we can just go in and just do.
Yeah, and
You know.
right now it's really restrictive what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can really do.
Yeah, February, Jack, is the NACO DC meetings,
okay.
so I'll keep you informed on that. Because I think those that attended that first meeting should travel down too and just attend and see if I want to see if Kate can set up the meetings like she did last time so that we can continue this conversation.
Yeah, the federal Medicare, the reimbursement rates are, the good news is it's a national issue. And so it's not just us little folks up here in Namsha. But so if we can actually get them behind that and build a bipartisan approach to it, in the long run, that's going to be pretty important. And my bet is it's going to take more than a year or two.
I agree.
And so the trick's going to be to figure out how to fund it. But I think there's an answer out there for that.
Yeah.
Could you remind me, I think Bob mentioned it, but I didn't quite catch it. What are the exact dates of the NHAC for
The
check-in and so forth?
November tenth through the 13th. Sunday is the 10th and the banquet is Tuesday night, so we'll be coming home on Wednesday.
Yeah,
Probably not to have a commissioners meeting then.
so the following week.
Right, okay, thanks.
All right.
So is their schedule end on the 12th, or do they actually have things going on in the morning of Wednesday?
I don't think they have anything scheduled.
If anything, it's like one or two courses that you can attend, but nothing that's.
A lot of times I just want to get back. A lot of times
Yeah,
I
it's
just
just
get up
have
in the morning,
breakfast and-
take a shower, and grab something to eat, and I'm on the road back because I just want to get back to work. So,
I have a leadership course that day, so I think I'll have to leave pretty early.
all right, so that's all I have. And we don't have any non-public sessions, so just a motion to adjourn and we're good.
So move.
Oh, I thought I saw like half a dozen of them on the agenda,
We
but,
put those on there in case we need them.
okay.
And when I talked to Tom Clausen about it, he said that's appropriate to do. Because at least the community's been notified that you may be having it. It doesn't mean that you are having it. And
No, I understand. I get it. Okay,
what we've done recently is we start highlighting the ones. If it's highlighted, then then yes, you're gonna have it on that topic.
yeah, that's fine.
All right,
Yep, no problem.
motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Wozniak,
I,
Commissioner
Aye,
England,
aye, aye,
Commissioner
aye,
Clark.
aye, 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 aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.
thanks, guys.